We have I think we have everyone. So I think we can go ahead and roll right into it. I don't like that view. All right, so welcome guys to week 5. So we have made it officially halfway through. It's kind of hard to believe we've already made it this far. It's kind of going quick. And I hope you guys have been really enjoying it. Just kind of an update for logistics part. You guys will be receiving your second box next week. So that'll have your weeks 5 through 10 in it. If you are signed up for the other half of our session, some of you I know are only doing half of the session. That's okay. You'll have your last day next week as well. But anyways, so be expecting to get those boxes. I'll also be emailing your parents because I know a lot of you get your boxes picked up. So I'll be emailing them. Pickup will be on Monday for that. So again, we're just going to roll right into our next weeks as well, just like we have so far. So everything will still be the same and whatnot. Like I said, you should be though getting your other supplies by next week. So all exciting stuff. Like I said, this week we're going to kind of dive into what it means to be a hotspot of biodiversity, and again go over our first example. So before we do that, and kind of go into what our habitat is, does anybody remember what does it mean to be biodiverse? So remember, this is like our overarching theme that we've been talking about for the past 4 or 5 weeks. But when I say that something is biodiverse, what is there many of? What would you say? Caitlin, go for it. Start us off.
Many different species of things like plants or animals.
Perfect. Yep. That's basically what it means. Anybody want to add to that, or does everyone agree? Probably. So yeah, essentially biodiversity just means you have a variety or a diversity of living things. So again, that could include plants, it can include animals. And again, that diversity just means that there are so many different types of species or there's a large amounts of these animals or plants in this area. So again, focusing on biodiversity, we're going to talk, like I said, about a hotspot. So what does it mean when I say this place is a hotspot? Anybody know what that might mean? Or just given the context of what you know about coral reefs, could you guess? Carson, go for it.
I think the hotspot means maybe like there's a lot of biodiversity going on there. Or like maybe like, yeah, what I just said.
Yeah, pretty much what you just said. Essentially, a hotspot in this term, and really in many terms, it just means that this is a high level. And so you get a high amount, a kind of concentrated amount of whatever you're thinking of. So for example, we're talking about biodiversity. So coral reefs are a habitat that has a high level of biodiversity, meaning it has a high level of different plants and animals that live there. And so there are many reasons for why coral reefs are really diverse. Does anybody want to guess either just some background knowledge that you have of coral reefs as to why, or just thinking about where coral reefs are located? Why might they be most diverse? Caitlin, go for it. What do you think?
Well, I know in the ocean near Australia, there's the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great example. Probably the most famous coral reef that a lot of people know. Perfect. Oh, let me open the chat, make sure I do get it. I do see your thing, Finn. Also, Katia, perfect. One of the main things about a coral reef is it has warm waters. And in general, warmer waters is going to allow more things to live there because there isn't as much of an extreme. For example, if you kind of compare that to other places that have water, for example, the Arctic Ocean, is there a lot of animals and things that live in the Arctic Ocean that we think about that you could just at least kind of come up on top of your head? There are definitely things that live there and that visit there. But there's definitely not, oh yeah, Connor, go ahead. Did you want to add?
Like seals or something.
Yeah, no, that's a great example of something that does live up in that area. So again, there are things that have adapted, meaning that they're able to live up there because they have certain things on them. But again, there's not that much diversity as you see in places that are a little bit warmer. And that's again, just because a lot of times when places are warmer, it allows for more things to both grow because you get more sunlight and more warmth, as well as again, it attracts more things to it. So automatically right there and then warm waters is kind of the essential for allowing it to have a wide variety of things that live there. And just some examples of different things that live there. I have my handy dandy poster, which we're gonna see how well this poster is being shown in here because it is quite large. But just some examples of some different things that live in our coral reef. First thing we kind of initially maybe think of when you think of a coral reef is you think of your sea turtles, or you think of your bigger kind of larger animals, reptiles, that kind of thing. And again, these are going to be animals that are going there. Why would these types of animals be at a coral reef? Any ideas? What are they mainly coming here for? Do they live here all the time? Is this kind of where they like hang out at? Is there something at these coral reefs that they are going around? What do you guys think? Ooh, I see Finn says it's safe. Absolutely. Acadia says food. Yes, food is going to be, again, another big factor for almost all of these animals as to why they come to or why they live in coral reefs. Because again, as I mentioned, because there are so many things that live there, you have more opportunity to get food. Versus if you were just out in the random part of the ocean, you might not have access to the food that you're looking for. Whereas if you're in a hotspot like this that has a whole variety of plants and animals to eat, you're probably going to stay in that area, which makes sense. Oh, yeah, perfect. Yep, I see Bella says it's safer at the coral reef. Perfect. Or safer where the coral is. Again, many types of fish, absolutely as well. Just kind of going to other types of animals. So you have your turtles, you also have your fish. Obviously, you're going to have different types of fish. The really cool and amazing thing about coral reefs is the variety of fish. Again, talking about that diversity. You have you can have so many different types of fish. Perfect. I see Finn notes what kind of fish it is. It is absolutely a parrotfish, which are amazing types of fish as well. They are really, really cool with their beak and everything. So again, you have, fish from this level to you have my personal favorite type of animal. We have our lovely clownfish here. Again, clownfish are really cool. I don't remember if we talked about clownfish last week, but clownfish have a symbiosis relationship, a mutualistic relationship. Does anybody know what other animal they have a relationship with? That's really, really cool. Acadia, are you raising your hand?
Yes. Sea anemones.
Yeah. Do you remember or know what their relationship is? How do they live together?
So clownfish live in the sea anemones and keep them safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So the clownfish live in the sea anemone, which you can see pictured here. It's this kind of plant looking part right next to our clownfish here. And they live there because it's nice protection for them. The sea anemone have particular things. I don't know what the exact makeup of it is, but it's their main home and protection because they do stain other types of fish besides them. And the clownfish, does anybody know what the clownfish do for the sea anemone? They do something good for them as well. Remember, this is a mutual relationship. Both partners are benefiting. Anybody know? Anybody want to guess? Acadia, is that your hand up again, or was that just from before? I just want to make sure. Just want to make sure. If so, that's fine. So basically what it is the fish, the clownfish, what they do is they will then help the sea anemone by I'm sorry, not protecting it. They will eat, similar to other animals we talked about, they eat the things that are around the sea anemone. So if there's small kind of macro invertebrates or things that are starting to kind of chip away at the sea anemone, the clownfish help with that. They make sure that the anemone is nice and happy, that kind of thing. So you have, you know, like I said, your range of fish. We also got our, you know, awesome jellyfish here. Again, now not all of these animals stay in this area all the time. They might be passing through, or they might just go to a coral reef for food. But then you have other animals that do stay at coral reefs for the whole time. So for example, we have, I'm trying to think if we can start small. So we have this guy, which is pretty cool. This is called a brain coral. You can imagine and kind of see why they're called a brain coral, because the shape of them has the ridges and stuff like that, like a brain does. Coral is also important to know. They are animals. They are not plants. So again, it's kind of weird to kind of put your head around how this would actually be an animal and not a plant, because it kind of looks like it'd be like a shrub or something. But these were actually very common. And again, they're really, really great because something I didn't mention about coral reefs is they tend to be a little bit more shallow. So when you have shallow water, what are you maybe getting a little bit more of? It also is a reason why your water is warmer. What's in the sky that would be giving you warmer water if you're not very deep? If you've ever been at like a really shallow pool and you've noticed going from one side of the pool to then the deep end of the pool, it changes that temperature. Does anybody know why? Why that is? Hold on, let me check the chat. Oh, Jonah said the sun. Absolutely, the sun. Caitlin said it as well. Perfect. Yes. So another thing about coral reefs is they tend to be shallower water. Meaning that you get more sun, again, meaning that you tend to be warmer. And that's great because animals, or even plants as well, that have to use the sun to either get themselves warm, or plants that make their food, they're able to then make that a lot quicker, a lot easier, and stuff like that. We also have these guys. Anybody know what this is? Any guesses? I always like to see, I know some of you know a lot of things about coral animals and stuff like that, so I always like to see. If it helps, it is a type of sponge. So again, still an animal, still considered an animal. Connor, do you want to guess? Go for it.
Sea sponge.
Oh, good guess. Again, similar to a sea sponge. I do like your thinking. This is specifically called a tube sponge because obviously you can see it's got your tube-like kind of structure. It's got, you know, open at the very top, and then it's got your tube-like kind of body. Again, these are animals. They allow food particles to come within their tube themselves, and they absorb that, which is pretty cool. You also get tons of varieties of different types of things. For example, our starfish. Again, another amazing, really cool type of animal. Again, the variety of these two, you know, I'm just showing you a few examples, but the variety of what these different animals look like is really, really, really cool. Again, more of them. This is a brittle star. It's actually considered an equiderm. It's a kind of an interesting kind of looking thing. Again, a cool thing about coral reefs is that there literally is every type of kind of cool, interesting looking thing. This one is specifically a bivalve, meaning that it has a top, this top part, and it has the bottom part right here as well. Again, pretty neat. So yeah, so like I said, as you can see just from the few pictures that we saw, big range of diversity. And again, specifically because there's warmer water, there's more sunlight, that attracts plants to be there and allows them the variety to grow. And then again, when you have all that diversity of plants, that then allows you to then bring in all different types of animals. So I have just a few artifacts to show as well, just to kind of give another close-up look. For example, the first one is this guy right here. So this is, again, I don't know if it was the same type that we saw, but this is what we call a loggerhead sea turtle. And the thing I wanted to point out about him, I know we see probably, or we have already seen a turtle. I can't remember if we have or not. But a cool thing to look at him, also this is a replica. This is not a real turtle. It's cool to see his shell though. He's got a really cool shell. Thing I wanted to point out with this guy that's different from other turtles we see is he has, again, those flippers that you can tell he's a sea turtle because he has these nice big flippers, again, that help him move around in the big sea. We also have our sea sponge, which again is really cool to be able to check out as well. And I'm hoping the camera, yep, I think it can show pretty well. So if you look at your sea sponge, you can see there's a whole bunch of little tiny holes. And again, those holes allow for things to get kind of trapped within it. Again, kind of thinking of how a normal sponge works, you have all of those holes and stuff like that. And stuff like that. So again, all of these holes trap in all of those little tiny insects, or not, I'm sorry, not insects, invertebrates or animals that would then get trapped. Again, then they get trapped in here and they can eventually get them. So again, pretty neat, pretty interesting. Also, lastly, as well, we have our different types of coral. Again, hoping that the thing can show it pretty well. So again, looking at, so this is kind of the bottom part of it, and then you have your main top of the coral right here. And again, a cool thing to kind of look at and see is all of the side parts of it. Again, all of the ridges and stuff like that, all of those tiny holes, again, allowing for the animal to trap different things inside of it, and stuff like that. So again, pretty neat, pretty interesting. This one over here is also the same. It also has tiny little holes. I'm not sure specifically what type of coral this is, but again, you can see all those little dark holes in it as well. Again, these are the pockets to be able to do it. Oh, I see some questions on it. Yes, last week we saw the screech owl. That's who we saw. She was really cute. Alrighty, so we're gonna get right into our craft activities. Probably not gonna take us very long, and or if you have done a similar craft to this, it's not too tricky. But again, you basically have your handy dandy sea anemone. And what we're going to essentially do, now I know it doesn't make sense to put sand in place of like where you would color something, but it looks really cool when you do it. So essentially, like I said, all you need is glue, which also I hope that my glue will be open. Stand by while I get all the crusted off glue at the top. I'm sure you guys know that feeling. Look at that whole crusted part of it right off. All right, so the point of doing sand art, has anybody done sand art before? You can raise your hand if you have or have not. Okay, see, Connor has, awesome. If you haven't, it's totally easy, pretty straightforward, and stuff like that. Again, relatively non-messy, just be aware of where your sand is going. I obviously don't want to, I don't want to tell you to make a mess, but sometimes it could be messy. So essentially what we're going to do, or what sand art is basically you're going to put glue on whatever part of the picture that you want to have sand on. So for example, I'm going to start off with a small piece. I think it's easier to start smaller instead of like putting the glue everywhere and then like eventually putting the sand, or you can just do what you want. So I'm going to start off by, I'm going to take my glue that I have. And again, it's going to be a little bit hard to see just because obviously glue is clear. So, I'm going to have to take my word. So I have put some glue. Yeah, that's not going to show at all, but trust me, I put glue right on this part of our sea anemone right here. So I just put a little bit of dollop and I kind of spread it around with the tip of my glue and put my bit of glue here. Then what you do, you take your handy dandy bag of sand, and there's two ways you can do it. You can either just like throw it on and just like do it up, or you can be more meticulous and try to be the least bit of dirty. So I normally just take a pinch of my sand that I have, and I'm just gonna put it directly on where I put my glue. So I would put it a little bit heavier than what you think it needs to cover up that spot. Again, we're gonna do stuff with the excess of it, or the excess, is that right? Sorry, my brain sometimes. All right, so again, it's gonna be a little bit tricky to picture it. All right, there we go. So as you can see, I have my sand. It's still loose on there, on the part that I put the glue. And then what I'm gonna do, all of this excess sand that didn't touch the glue, I'm just gonna go bloop and just slide it right on back into my bag. And then the cool thing is, when you then look at it, you can see I missed a spot or two. But then when you look, you can see the sand is now connecting or sitting right where that glue was. Carson, did you have a question? Go for it.
Do we have to do this?
It's up to you. You don't have to. Also, if you wanted to do something else with your sand, like if you wanted to make a different picture with it instead of coloring in our sea anemone, you could also do that as well.
Yeah, I just vacuumed my carpet today.
I did see your comment. I understand if you're a little bit worried about making a mess. I totally get it. You know, always wanting to make sure you stay a little bit more on the conservative side just in case. Carson, if you wanted to, you could just color it in. If you have like something to color with, you could always do that as an alternative, or you can just wait and put it somewhere else. So as you can see, I've now added it to my other piece. Also, yes, if you got different color sand, oh, I see that was from Carson as well. Again, doesn't matter what the color is. Mine's kind of like a reddish brownish kind of color. And again, you can also color whatever part of the sea anemone and the clownfish that you want. You guys might have gotten different colors depending on how much was left over and stuff like that. So like I said, mine's kind of a combo of like a brown and yellow sand. And again, nice thing about this too is that it will eventually obviously dry, because that's what glue does. And it'll dry with the sand. So once you're done doing that, sorry, it's a little confusing when you just look at it in general. But that's, like I said, that's basically what sand art is. The cool thing also about sand art is that you can also just do this with anything. So you could do it for, like I said, if you didn't want to specifically do it on this paper, you could just make shapes out of it. And stuff like that. Kind of just depends on, like I said, what you want to make and stuff like that. Also, obviously you can use different colored sand as well. You know, they have all different kinds of fancy sand types and stuff like that. So there's no necessarily right or wrong. And I'm making a lovely mess too. I keep showing you my progress. Again, not perfect, but getting there. Slowly getting there. I'm personally just going to color in my clownfish, and then I'm just going to be doing my my coral as my part of my sand art. Also, something cool kind of going along with this too. Obviously, the reason why we're doing sand art is because, you know, coral reefs have sand. You can also do this very similarly with mud. Obviously, I guess you could do it with dirt is what I mean. You could do it with dirt. So again, still using your glue, stuff like that. Oh, I see Grayson's is looking good. Awesome. But like I said, you can do it similarly with dry dirt. You can also do the same thing. You literally just use the glue and just put it right on it. Oh, I see Caitlin's is looking good. Awesome. Yep. Where I was going with mud is that you can also just color and do things with mud as well. Again, similar kind of setup to this as well. Like I said. And again, nice thing is it will dry with the sand on it, so you don't have to worry about obviously not having your sand kind of thing. Carson, did you have a question or comment? I saw your hand was up. I'm not sure if that was from before.
No, I just forgot to lower it.
Okay, just making sure.
That always happens.
As I always want to make sure. How's everyone's going? Hope you're, for the most part, doing well. Awesome. I see Caitlin's is looking good coming in. So there are, again, just to kind of give you some facts while you're doing it, if you're doing it, is that coral reefs are not only at, only in Australia, stuff like that. They are in other locations. Again, when you have that kind of perfect or that ideal scenario where you have both warm water and sunlight and stuff like that, there are many places like that around the world that have that kind of scenario that also help. Also talking about coral reefs, I didn't check on, comment on this as well, but oh, awesome. Yeah, I see pins. Awesome. Does anybody know what's happening with coral reefs? It's probably been in the news a lot within the past 10, 15 years or so, but anybody know? Caitlin, go for it.
I know they're dying, but I'm not sure if it's I think it might be because of pollution.
Yeah. So the one aspect of the reason why coral reefs are being affected really heavily is absolutely pollution. So pollution in terms of, we kind of originally normally think of trash. We all know, or we're probably aware that there's a big kind of crisis in the world with a lot of trash happening around, or trash ending up in water sources, for example, oceans and lakes and stuff like that. So issues with trash being in water is that it kind of acts like a blanket over where that trash or where that, area is. So it doesn't let in sunlight, which can affect the amount that plants are growing and stuff like that, the animals that live there. Another thing that's happening with them is called acidification. Which is kind of a big fancy word to say that the ocean is getting more acidic, which is basically not very good for the animals and plants that live there, because it essentially, kind of long story short, it basically kills whatever is living in that area, because they are sensitive to the acidity of the ocean water. So what happens is you have these animals that are living inside of your coral. They get spit out when the water is too acidic, and then that coral then dies. And basically the sad part is it's kind of a trickle effect. Like once it really starts to get going, it's really hard for it to stop happening. It kind of builds on itself. So that's, like I said, a big thing that is happening to oceans right now. And it's kind of hard to trace where the acid is coming from. It is due to the globe warming up and stuff like that. And those kinds of things. Carson, did you have your hand up? Just checking.
Can I just say something really random?
Go for it. I love random.
Minecraft is adding axolotls to raise awareness for them.
Awesome. That's really cool. I love that. That's really awesome. Yeah. Axolotls are really, really cool. Really, really cool animals. That's really awesome. All right. So we are just about out of time. We are right at our thing. So we again are all good to go for today. As I mentioned, next week we'll start our next session. Again, you should be getting your materials for that as well. And then we'll just get right into it. We have 2 other hotspots we're going to cover, talk about why they're a little bit different and stuff like that. But as of now, keep finishing up your painting. I would then set it, or your sand art, I would set it somewhere to dry so that way it stays safe. But if not, I will see you guys next week.